All right, indeed, India's Amrit Pal Singh is joining us live on this story. Hi, Amrit. So many months, in fact, years into this conflict between Russia and Ukraine, and United States now is quite hopeful when it comes to peace talks. They perhaps will be holding the talks from the Ukrainian side today in Saudi Arabia and tomorrow with Russia. How do you analyze this particular scenario which is there in front of us?
Well, after President Trump made calls to both President Zelensky and first to President Putin and later to President Zelensky the next day, this Monday and Tuesday, essentially he was able to put his political weight behind the talks and get both sides to agree to talking about, a temporary ceasefire, a 30-day ceasefire, which both sides, according to sources, have agreed at least for a temporary ceasefire. Of course, concerns remain. Both sides have their, demands. For example, Ukraine wants attacks on all energy infrastructures to completely stop. Russia's got concerns about the Black Sea's security, what happens to the areas that both control in each other's territory. For example, Luhansk, Donetsk, Kherson, Zaporizhia, which is controlled by Russia. On the other hand, the Ukrainian forces are in Kursk. Whether those areas go to each other, who controls the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. So these are, issues that need to be thrashed out during before a certain ceasefire can be brought about. So the Ukrainians are sending their technical team. The Russians are also sending the team for these indirect talks, US-mediated talks. These talks are not Ukraine and Russia are not going to sit on the table, but they're going to sit with US officials and see how forward movement can be made. So
Amrit, also I want to ask you that when it comes to 30-day ceasefire, perhaps Ukraine is agreeing to it, but Russia is saying that they have some conditions and only after that they'll think about implementing when it comes to the 30-day ceasefire. However, they in the current scenario are not attacking the energy infrastructure of Ukraine. So what can we understand with that?
No, the Russians have conditions, you're right. So do the Ukrainians. But I think, that's a negotiating position that they're taking. That's a maximalist position that they're taking that, unless these are met. But as Witkoff said in his podcast with Carlson, he made it very clear that, both sides are amenable to talking to the United States about the ceasefire. So I think those wrinkles have been ironed out. Of course, as I said, issues remain. Clearly, they remain. But as he said, as Witkoff said, that some give and take has to happen from both sides, and what the US is trying to do is thrash a deal where both sides are able to agree on some things in the immediate future to get a ceasefire, a temporary ceasefire, a 30-day ceasefire before talks go on for a long-term negotiation. You're right; they're not attacking in energy infrastructure, but they are attacking each other. Kiev was attacked. The Russians say they've neutralized Ukrainian drones. So do the Ukrainians say, they've neutralized over 147 drones of Russia, etc., and missiles. So I think what's happening really is that before they sit down to the table, they are trying to make as much gain as possible on the battlefield, so that that can be leveraged on the negotiating table.
Amrit, also when it comes to getting a peaceful solution of this particular conflict, and the talks are happening in Saudi Arabia, as we all know, can we expect something positive? Because there have been so many times these things come up, but then there is no solution, there is zero result, and both the countries keep attacking each other. But can we expect something positive this time around?
There'll be a forward movement. There'll be a forward movement. There are technical teams being sent. Russia's sending two of its key negotiators. President Zelensky said that he's sending a technical team. I think there'll be forward movement this time around. Attacks, will they stop on the battleground? No. Before ceasefire is achieved, because the strategy in any negotiation, the strategy is to make as much military gain as possible before you negotiate that on the table. So that's
Also, Amrit, Russia has categorically said to US to stop sharing intelligence with Ukraine. So what is happening, here? How do you analyze this?
The Americans are sharing intelligence with the Ukrainians. They had paused that to bring them, to the table. But after the Ukrainians agreed to that, it looks like the US is in a mood to share intelligence with them, at least at the moment. So
And also, finally, Amrit, we all know what happened in the the White House fiasco between Donald Trump and Zelensky. What is the fate of rare earth minerals deals in such a scenario?
Rare earth minerals deal is a small deal. That's true.
Okay.
The only question is how will it be affected? Because
Okay.
the areas where the rare earth minerals exist or have to be extracted from, some of those areas are in Russian control. Now, how the Americans negotiate with the Russians remains to be seen. But in principle, Zelensky's agreed to the rare earth minerals
Yeah.
deal with the United States.
Correct. All right. Thank you so much. That was a wonderful analysis again, Amrit, and we'll keep taking updates from you as and when they will come. Thank you so much.